Money is made possible by financial support from Old National Bank and Chicagoans like you. Thank you. Hello, welcome to In the Money. I am your host, Kimberly Loftis, a CPA and Chicago Business Journal woman of influence who is also a financial executive who is passionate about personal finance. When I graduated from college, I was very lucky not to have a lot of student loan debt, but what I did have was a lot of credit card debt, which resulted in non-stop calls from bill collectors. The combination of a small starting salary, Chicago living expenses, and the large amount of credit card debt created a lot of stress. To get out of the situation I put my own self in, I educated myself on personal finance and at the same time gained a financially stabilizing career. It wasn't a quick fix, but by being diligent with my budget, I was able to become debt-free. This newfound financial freedom provided not only relief, but also a foundation for a more secure and prosperous future, not only for myself, but also for my family. If you struggle to understand where your money is going and how to budget, this episode is for you. Today we'll be discussing what budgeting is, how to budget, and why budgeting is so important. When we come back today in the living room, our guests will help you transform your financial health. As I mentioned earlier, today we're discussing how to budget. To do that, we must first start with understanding what a budget is and what method works best for your personality. Our financial expert on this topic is Tamara Dervin. Welcome to the show, Tamara, and why should our audience listen to what you have to say on this important topic?
Hi, Kimberly. First of all, thank you for having me today. And I would say to your audience, the reason why you should listen to me, not because I'm a financial expert or I've studied accounting and finance, but really I sit in this seat not as someone that has gotten it perfect throughout my life. I've had highs and lows as it relates to my finances, but what I will say is budgeting and practicing basic financial principles throughout my financial journey is what caused me to get through those various seasons of life. And even through those various seasons of life, achieve financial goals. So I would say that listening to us today in this discussion would be good because we understand. I think that's the most important thing. People think that when you're a financial expert, you really don't understand the everyday ins and out of life. And what I'm saying to you today is practicing these very principles that we're going to talk about today has gotten me through those various seasons. And I really want them to not only lean into what we're talking about, but see, okay, I can do it too.
Okay. Now, what is budgeting?
Budgeting, plain and simple, is you sitting down every month making a plan of how you're going to spend your money. In plain English, it's taking your expenses, your income, and any additional money that you're looking to spend and writing that down every month.
Okay. Now, what if I have a side hustle or a part-time job in addition to my full-time job? Does that go into the budget?
Yes, that does. And it's an easy way to, sometimes people say, okay, I don't have consistent income, so that additional income. But what you can do is take an average of that, of what you plan to possibly earn in those side hustles, or if your income is inconsistent, and add that to your income line of your budget.
So why do they say budget in the first place? Like, what does it do?
A budget actually helps you to understand and say, okay, do I have enough money every month to do what I'm planning to do that month?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So if people don't say, they don't make a plan, and when you don't make a plan, you really plan to fail. So I say you sit down and say, okay, do I have enough not only for my expenses, but those additional things that I'm trying to do every month, whether it's entertainment, going out with friends. You have to sit down, okay, do I have enough income coming in to do all the things that I'm trying to do? So it's really important to sit down, do it in black and white, on paper, and say, okay, do I have enough money to, first of all, take care of my expenses? Because the whole thing is we don't want people to overspend. A lot of people don't sit down and do a budget, and what they end up doing during the month is overspending. And we don't want to do that, because what does that do? That causes debt. You mentioned debt in the opening, and we don't want to go into debt. The other thing is you want to see, okay, how can I fit in my financial goals for the year that I'm trying to do. And the only way that you can do that is sit down and put your budget in black and white to say, okay, what sacrifices maybe do I need to make in order to reach those goals? So budgeting is extremely important.
So if one of those type of persons that I can only think of in the moment, but I don't do a good job of planning, with that type of personality, how can I budget successfully?
If you are in the moment, I think that you can still do budgeting, because when you're in the moment, you can sit down and say, okay, what do I want to do in the future? And I would say make it something fun. So let's say you want to do a vacation. You have to plan for that vacation now in order for it to happen in the future. The other thing is, if you're in the moment, let's say you're in debt. Debt is probably feeling weighing, it's probably feeling like chains, and it's probably causing you stress. So you say, okay, in that moment, I want to get rid of my debt. So let me sit down and figure out how I can get out of this debt, or how I can save for my next vacation. So I would say creating financial goals gives you the vision, it gives you the drive to actually do that practice of budgeting every month.
So outside of income, expenses, what else could be in a budget?
Your financial goals.
Okay, so my financial goals.
Getting out of debt, because you need to create room in your budget in order for you to get out of debt.
To make those payments.
You have to make those payments. You have to make not only the minimum payments, but those additional payments. Also saving for emergencies, saving for retirement. If you have kids in college, saving for fun things like vacations or Christmas, or gifts and things that you may plan to do. So those are additional things that we often spend money for, but we don't actually budget for them, which leads down the road of maybe a cycle of debt, or or having that feeling of only just having enough and not more than enough.
Now, how can I make budgeting a family affair? For example, is there oversharing that you would do with little kids versus teenagers, or maybe certain things they shouldn't know, like how much money I make, or I have a mate who has a different money personality than I? How can we all budget together as a family?
I would say it's good to actually have conversations. I feel like we haven't had those conversations. Like, I don't remember having those conversations with my mom. And now, retrospect, I wish that I did have those conversations, because I feel that it wouldn't have taken me longer to really get into the practice of doing it and really starting a healthy financial journey quicker. So I feel that as a family, whether you and your spouse have a different money mindset or personality, I think that when you come to the table, if you guys do, you have to go into the conversation understanding each person, where their origin is and how they relate to money and how they feel about money, first of all. And then you guys decide how you want to go about it. I know, like with my late husband, his personality was different from mine. I used to call him Sir Spend a Lot. And mine is, let's save, let's invest, like not just spend on a whim. His thing was, well, it's only $20. I said, but those $20 here and there add up. So we created a system together to help us to stay within budget and on budget within our family. We also sat down as a family and talked about what our goals, what our dreams were. So as we were budgeting and having these discussions, we knew, okay, what's the drive, what's the focus that we're trying to attain, which helped everybody kind of get on board. Now, as it relates to children, I think that you should go at the pace based on their age.
Now, earlier you mentioned having pen and paper to do your budget, but what about all these apps that are out there?
So I always tell people, apps, pen and paper are all good. Like, I tell people, you can be an app person, you can be a pen and paper person. The most important thing with budgeting is to actually have it written in black and white every month, no matter your method. Because you mentioned in the earlier piece that this is personal finance that we're talking about. So it's personal. What's important is you figuring out what your natural rhythm is, what your natural being is. So if your natural rhythm right now is you're a techie and you like apps or you like programs on the screen, do that. If you are a pen and paper person, do that. If you're a combination person, like me, I like my monthly budget on the screen, but then my spending plan on pen and paper that I use every 2 weeks. So the most important thing is you doing it consistently every month, not only making the budget, but actually following the budget that you create.
So you mentioned doing it at least once a month, but we're now almost halfway through January. and I've already blown my budget? How do I get back on track? Or how do I even know I'm off track? I might not even know I'm off track because I'm only looking at it once a month.
So I would say actually check in every couple weeks, at least on your budget. So like for me, I check in at least every 2 weeks on my budget, my main budget, but I'm watching my spending every week. So if you're saying, okay, I really want to be committed to this process, and you actually know specific goals that you want to achieve, this is something that is a financial discipline that you have to do in order to reach those goals and not overspend. So there are apps that can help you, and they actually can give you alerts when you've actually, met or exceeded like a budget bucket. But even with the pen and paper, you can check in with your checking account, with whatever account that you use, to see if you are getting close to your budget limit or overspending for that month. But I would say the discipline of checking in every month is creating the budget before the month starts. Now the check-in should come every time at least money flows into your house. But if you're not watching what you're spending, I would definitely check in sooner than that, maybe once a week, no more than every 2 weeks.
So the steps of budgeting are, from what I'm hearing, is that I write down how much money I'm bringing in every month, and that's net, not gross, correct, after taxes?
Your take home pay.
And then I'm listing out all my expenses and what I plan to spend against my income that I'm bringing in, actual cash coming into my account from everybody who lives in the household, and putting that budget together. And then I'm also checking it based off of probably my money personality. If I'm not good at adhering to what I put in print, I need to probably check myself more often than once a month.
Yes.
And so that is a process of how to budget.
Yes.
I think a lot of times people are not clear on how to get started.
And I would say if you don't have a place to get started, there are budgeting models, and I think you've kind of talked about this on the show in the past shows, that you can use to help you get started, to actually frame what buckets to actually put your take-home pay in to get you started. And
in the past shows, I've mentioned the 50-30-20 rule, which is 50% are your needs, 30% are your wants, and then 20% is your savings or debt repayment. I thought it was an easy way that anybody could use and say, hey, this is really a need, making sure you understand that definition. But it's generic enough where anybody could put stuff in those little silos but not being overwhelmed.
Right.
Now, I think easy is better than more complicated. Are there certain people who maybe like something more complex, or should we always keep it simple?
I would say try to keep it simple, but there are people that are advanced in their money journey. So whether it's them doing it more complex with as far as spreadsheets and really analyzing their budgets, or them even doing different methods, because there are all kind of different methods to pay your bills, quicker ways to pay off your bills. So I would say go with whatever strategy works for you, because like we said, personal finance is personal, but go at your own pace. If someone tells you a process or a strategy to do something, if you don't understand how to do it, that might not be the strategy for you at this moment. Not saying that it's not a good strategy, but it may not be a good strategy for you at this moment. So I would say keeping it simple actually helps you to stay disciplined and focus on actually doing it every month.
So focus on just getting it done.
Right.
And then as you get comfortable, you can add on more complex
additional
steps.
Things.
But
right.
just get it done.
Just start first.
Well, thank you so much. When we return, we'll discuss how to budget based on our own personal relationship with money, because as you said, money is all personal.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton. Join me Mondays at 7 p.m. for Behind the Confident Smile as I sit in conversation with incredible, dynamic, and complex Chicagoans who peel back the layers, living lessons, the joy, and the pain behind their confident smiles. You can watch on CanTV 19, cantv.org, and CanTV Plus app.
Now that you understand what a budget is and how it will help you become or stay financially healthy, we're now going to find out what type of budgeting process or tool best fits your money relationship. So in that vein, let's talk about financial health. So there's apps out there, there's pens and paper that tells you if you're negative or in the red or you're positive. What does that mean?
So there are apps that will tell you, and programs that will actually tell you what your net worth is.
Okay.
And you can allow all your accounts to be linked, and it will tell you whether you have a positive net worth, whether you're at break even, or you have a negative net worth. And that means that you are in debt, basically. Or you're at a positive place. You're actually, your investments or the money that you have in the bank is more than what you owe.
Okay.
So it's your assets minus your liabilities. So I think that's a great indicator of what your financial health is. And it's also, I think, when you do a platform like that, which I actually really like to do, it shows you, first of all, where you need to improve, whether you need to improve of getting rid of debt and also increasing your assets, because that actually helps improve your net worth. And I feel like it encourages you to actually take action and make it happen. Sometimes if we don't know, then we don't know that, okay, I'm not necessarily financially healthy, so it doesn't excite you to get rid of debt, or it doesn't excite you to save or invest. But when you start seeing those numbers in black and white, I think you say, okay, you know what? I want to have a positive net worth, or I want my net worth to grow. Once you even start to see that positive, you say, okay, I want it to grow. So then you're not so focused on the next thing that you can buy, but then you start to focus on what's the next thing I can either save for or invest in to actually cause my assets to grow.
So I can link what I'm doing in my budget to my goal for my financial health. For example, if I want to pay down debt, that will be part of my goal, and I'll see that shrink as far as my net worth go up and my debt go down. And then if my goal is to have a new house, then that helps me save up for that down payment, because that's kind of like an investment for the family. Is a kind of way to link the financial health to my budget.
Yes. So when you link the financial health to your budget, it actually translates to you creating different, to me, it makes you link to creating different financial goals. So when you look at your budget and you have your regular monthly expense, I think sometimes with our budgets, we get bogged down in our monthly expenses and don't think about the future or how healthy is my financial life based on my expenses. But when you're looking at your budget in the context of my net worth, and you're saying, okay, what do I need to focus on in my budget? Do I need to focus on trimming expenses so that I can focus on getting rid of that debt, or trimming expenses so that I can save more or invest more? So I think that they coexist, your budget and your financial health, because if you're constantly overspending, you're not financially healthy. But if you're in a place where your spending is under control and you're in a place of saving, investing, you have little to no debt, or you're in a process of getting rid of your debt, you're causing yourself to be more financially healthy. So I think they coexist and they run parallel to each other.
Well, I like to add is a lot of time when you put things on a credit card and it's increasing and increasing, if you're not looking at your net worth, you don't realize that your debt is even going up. All you know is I'm paying that minimum monthly payment, but you're not really looking at the fact that you're adding more and more debt onto your net worth.
And like I said, there are apps and platforms that will show you that in real time.
Now, stepping back to our audience who they have all different money personalities. My money personality is I'm a super saver. I hold really tight onto a dollar. I've really worked to make sure that I enjoy money, do family vacations and other things that bring me joy. At the end of the day, that's why we earn money. What would you say what I should be doing from a budget perspective if I'm a super saver to make sure that I'm building in the things to balance off that negativity, the scarcity mindset I have around money?
I would say the one thing that I would do is to actually always build in something fun. If you know that already that I have a scarcity mindset or a mindset of I'm a super saver and I won't allow myself to have fun, I would say that I would have to be intentional. I would say make sure you're intentional, whether it's every year when you sit down and do your financial goals, to say, okay, one of my goals is to do X this year, whether it's a vacation or something fun, an experience, whatever is fun for you. To say, okay, I'm going to intentionally make this an actual financial goal so that if you're a super saver, I'm saving for something fun. Okay. One of my saving goals is for me to do something fun. So now you have it in black and white, your financial goals, that I have to make this goal happen. And you will see every year, okay, I'm consistently saving for other things that I'm being disciplined in, plan, but I'm also integrating the experience of life, especially with family.
And I can say my personal experience, seeing in black and white, the ability to be able to do these things gave me stress relief. It's like, oh, I can do this and still save, you know? But what about those people on the other spectrum where they're overspenders and they're in the red every month?
We need them to reel it in. We need the other personality on the other spectrum to reel it in and say, okay, this is not a season that I need to maybe do certain things. Maybe I need to, in this season, I need to reel it in so that I'm focusing on getting rid of debt. And I always think people, when you tell them, okay, you got to stop spending, you cannot do that vacation, they think that if they can't do a vacation or something fun this year, that it's forever. We're not like, no, I always tell people it's for a season.
Okay.
If you miss one thing so that you're not stressed and deep in debt, you're gonna live. You're gonna live, but you're gonna start to live and not have as much stress because you're deep in debt. And I think if people really realize how stressful being in debt actually is, they would start to release some of those other things that they feel that they have to do. Because people, you know, in this society, people have FOMO. They have the fear of missing out on something. But it's always something to do. It's always the next year. But if this debt, you don't want to carry this debt around for a lifetime, because we know that it's constantly increasing, especially with interest rates increasing.
So anything they can do once they put their budget together, so they've pull back, but then there's those people, it's just not enough to stretch to cover all your expenses, even though you've budgeted.
When you're doing your budgeting, let's say, okay, your income is still not enough to cover your expenses. The first thing I always tell people is to really, truly do a hard look and an honest look, an assessment of your expenses. Sometimes the first look is not really the honest look, because we hold on to things. And you mentioned in the budget model, the needs versus the wants, and really assessing, okay, with those wants, what can I cut? Because there are a lot of things that we think that it's a necessity that's not really a necessity. So if you really trimmed your budget down to, okay, this is my basic essentials that I need, and the income is not enough, then we have to look at, okay, how can I increase my income? And you mentioned earlier about side hustles or even second jobs and things to actually boost your income, or even shifting your career or shifting your job where you actually make more money so that you can cover and live at least a decent life, so that you can start to do not only your expenses but also take care of those financial goals that you have.
Now, what about expense sharing, like maybe bringing in a roommate, things like that, which, you know, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do that, but if your situation is that dire, that'd be something that you would recommend?
Yeah, so sometimes you do, let's say a roommate, or if I've seen couples that, when you see people that say, okay, we paid off $100,000 of debt, they've made intentional sacrifices for that season so that they could aggressively go after debt or aggressively go after a saving goal. And they've made huge sacrifices, like, especially with housing, because housing can typically be one of your biggest line items. They've either reduced their housing expense by whether they had a big house and they sold it and, you know, went to a smaller place, or some people have, if they had family members that they could actually move in with and get a room from them, rent it for a little while so that they could save or get rid of a significant debt. Or like you mentioned, they say, okay, could I bring in a roommate for a season? Whatever that housing situation is, if you want to be aggressive to go after your financial goals, you sometimes have to make aggressive financial moves that may not be understood by other people, but you understand internally what you're trying to accomplish.
So one thing I would like to discuss on this budgeting topic for those people who are really stressed out and they are, you know, it's causing them mental issues, where it's, you know, to the point where it's unhealthy, even though they put everything in black and white, it's still not there. I like that you say the season. So can you say something to those people who are really like at their end of their rope, you know, financially, and it's starting to affect them mentally? What would you recommend for those people?
First, I would recommend that if your financial situation is stressing you out, it might be helpful, and I know money may be tight, but there are resources that are maybe even free resources to actually talk to someone. Don't keep all of that stress in. So I would actually seek professional guidance, help in that area, especially if it's significantly affecting your mental health. The second thing is breathe. This is for a season. Whether it's being overwhelmed with debt or your expenses just aren't enough, there are ways that you can get through. And I know sometimes when we're looking at the thing right then and there, we never see the other side of it or getting to the other side. But I believe that if you stay diligent in the process, whether it's like we talked about cutting the expenses or seeking to increase that income on the income side, I believe that as you persevere step by step, and you might need to get assistance and help in different areas because there's so many different places that you can get assistance from. But I believe if you implement it step by step, you will get to the other side.
Now, we're doing the budgeting monthly, so if I have something like a flat tire and I didn't have an emergency fund, how does that impact my budget and what do I do?
Those unexpected expenses always come up. So that's why I know you said if you don't have an emergency, that's why it's always important to have one, even if it's a small emergency fund, if you start with like $500 or $1,000, because those unexpected expenses always come up. If something like that happens, the first thing I always recommend to people, and even what I do, is go back to my budget, okay? Let me see, is there anything, first of all, that I can move around for this month to say, okay, is there something that I was planning to do that maybe because this happened, I may not be able to do it? It's not a fixed expense. It's something variable that I was thinking about doing so that I can integrate this expense into my budget this month and not have to overspend. Second thing is an emergency fund, like, if you have a few dollars to save to the side, use that. I would say exhaust everything before you go into debt to take care of that expense.
So what other things could they do to manage the budget? So we have tools, we take into account our money personality, seeing it in black and white. Are we missing anything as far as setting them off to be able to do their own budget?
I would say the only thing is, like I said before, if you need help, ask for it. It's no shame in asking, saying, okay, I've been over my head, over my rope, and I really need help with sitting down and looking at these numbers. But I would say we've kind of given them the basic things to go off into doing this budget. And just remember, it's actually simple. The hardest part of actually budgeting and challenging part is being consistent and disciplined in doing it and actually following. That's really the hardest part. That's the hardest part.
Well, thank you so much. Follow these tips of just do it and breathe.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Rich Robbins, inviting you to join me for the series Soft and Tender. Soft and Tender celebrates the resilience and emotional depth of Black fatherhood, offering a powerful narrative on family bonds and ongoing challenges faced by Black communities.
As a father and as a parent in general, you have to know that you're not going to always understand, and that's okay.
Tune in on CAN TV, cable channel 19, or stream at cantv.org or the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
Today's discussion was about budgeting and keeping it simple. Your budgeting process cannot be successful if you don't take into account your relationship with money. If you have been following each episode, you have already done the work of knowing your money mindset as well as your negative financial triggers. With a budget taking into account the work that you have already done, you can be successful in achieving your financial goals. Budgeting is not about changing who you are, but recognizing who you are and adjusting accordingly. You only hurt yourself when you avoid self-awareness. If you know that you tend to overspend for your birthday, for example, then just go ahead and budget for it. Money is not about mindless restriction, but stretching within reason what you have to live your best life. The In the Money team is here to support and empower you every step of the way. So continue on your journey of self-awareness and embrace your budget based on what method that is more likely to end in success. Join us next week as we continue our journey to financial freedom for 2024. If you have any questions about today's topics or past topics, please send me an email to Kimberly@inthemoneyemail.com or follow me on Instagram, Diva of Cashflow. Remember, we are on this journey together.